Ladies and gentlemen, so no one believed in you. It's all right. What makes you think they must? Now you say, and they don't believe in me. Tell me, are you living in such a way that your very presence demands belief? Or are you waiting like a beggar at the door of the world for a few coins of approval? Those who wait to be believed in, they waste their life preparing a stage that no one may ever watch. But one who becomes fire, does he need to invite anyone to feel his warmth? The world did not believe in the seed before it became a tree. But the seed never waited. It simply broke, burst and rose. When you walk a path that no one else sees, they will laugh. It's natural. But remember, laughter is not a verdict. It is just ignorance echoing loudly. Let it echo. You walk. You don't need belief. You need clarity. You don't need support. You need fire. You don't need the vision. You need eyes that look inward. If someone believed in you, good. If they didn't, better. Because then what you build will come not from their imagination but from the core of your being. So stop asking for faith, and stop waiting for hands to clap, just burn, just become. And in that flame, not only will they believe, they will bow. When you live in a world that constantly looks at you through the lens of success and failure, of applause and rejection, of popularity and invisibility, it is only natural that somewhere within your longing arises to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be told that you matter, that you are on the right path, that the tragedy is not that people don't see you. The tragedy is when you begin to see yourself only through their eyes, when you begin to measure the depth of your being with the shallow ruler of public opinion, forgetting that the most significant flower often blooms in silence away from attention, away from praise, simply because it cannot be otherwise. This is the dilemma of the human heart. It beats not only to sustain your life, but also to be heard, to be recognized. And in the desperation to be validated by the world, you slowly give away the authority of your own self. Piece by piece, you allow the world to become your mirror, forgetting that mirrors only reflect what's visible on the surface and never the truth of what is burning quietly beneath your skin, what trembles silently in your spine, what knows without words that you are meant for something that perhaps no one else can yet see. But to turn inward and look for validation from the core of your being is not a denial of the world, and your direction does not sway with their opinions. Suddenly you find yourself walking with a stillness that is more powerful than the loudest ovation, with a steadiness that no criticism can shake. And this is not arrogance, this is clarity, this is not rebellion, this is freedom. You see, the world will always have something to say. Sometimes it will praise you for the wrong reasons, sometimes it will condemn you without understanding, sometimes it will forget you even existed, and sometimes it will celebrate someone else for doing far less than you have done. And if your inner state is built on these ever-shifting sands, then peace will always remain a distant dream, purpose will always feel like a borrowed costume, and life will become a performance rather than a dance. But when you stop seeking approval as nourishment, when you stop feeding your soul with the junk food of attention and begin to taste the richness of your own silence, your own knowing, your own unshakable presence, something fundamental shifts, not in the world, but within you. And that shift is not visible, it cannot be posted online, it cannot be captured in likes or followers, but it radiates in every breath. It shines in the way you walk, in the way you speak less but say more, in the way you no longer try to prove, only to be. Even if no one ever says, well done, you are not undone. Even if no one claps when you enter the room, your presence is not diminished. Even if the entire world walks away, you'll not collapse, because you were never walking for them, you're walking with yourself. And when a being becomes full within, when there is no more gap to fill, no more begging for recognition, no more thirst for someone to say you are worthy, then life is no longer a negotiation, it is a flowering. So the next time you feel unseen, ask yourself, am I not the one who must see first? Am I not the one who must listen to the whisper before waiting for the shout? Am I not the one who must become the light rather than chase it? And if that light within burns steady and bright, does it matter whether the world notices? Does it matter whether they understand? Or is it enough that I have touched something real? Something that no applause can amplify and no criticism can diminish? Because in the end, it was never about being believed in. It was about remembering who you are, not in their eyes, not in their words, but in the vast, wordless space of your own presence. No need for permission, no waiting for validation. Only the unshakable knowing that you are here, and that is more than enough. There comes a time when everything around you grows quiet. Not the quiet that soothes, but the kind that unsettles, where the calls you once received stop arriving, where the eyes that once looked at you with possibility now turn indifferent, where the spaces once filled with voice of encouragement now echo only with the sound of your own footsteps. And in this silence, a shadow appears. Doubt slips in like a slow mist, wrapping around your thoughts, asking questions with no answer, whispering things you try to ignore. What if you are not enough? What if this path leads nowhere? What if this dream was never yours to begin with? And it is in these moments that many break, not because the world broke them, but because they misunderstood the silence as abandonment. They mistook the absence of noise for a lack of meaning. But the silence, if you really listen, is not empty. It is fertile. It is a womb, not a grave. It is the space before sound, the stillness before movement, the breath before the first cry, and it comes not to punish you but to offer you something deeper than applause, more lasting than praise. Because in the silence of doubt, your illusions begin to dissolve, your masks grow heavy, your ego loses fuel, and something raw, something real, something unshaped and ancient begins to stir from beneath all the noise you once mistook for life. You see, doubt is not your enemy, it is your fire, it is the question that burns away everything that is false. It is the force that demands you stop quoting others and start listening to yourself. It is not the end of belief, but the beginning of clarity. Because when all the voices go quiet and all the comforts fade, what remains is what has always been there, untouched by opinion, unshaken by failure, the core of your being. The stillness you try to run from now becomes your only companion, and it is not against you, it is for you. Most people run from this silence, they fill it with distraction, with drama, with another goal, another relationship, another escape, thinking movement is progress, thinking noise is purpose. But silence has not come to stop you, it comes to invite you inward. Because in that quiet, you will finally face what you avoided. You will sit with the fear without trying to fix it. You will look into the doubt without trying to escape it, and in doing so, you will see it was doubt about the false layers you wrapped around your worth. So if you feel lost, good, because the one who feels lost has finally left the crowd, finally stepped off the path of imitation, finally entered the forest of the unknown where real discovery happens. And yes, it is dark there, yes, it is lonely there, but it is lonely there, but it is also alive there. Because nothing real is born in certainty, certainty only repeats the past, but in doubt, the future begins to shape itself not as a plan, not as a map, but as a pulse, a sense, a knowing without words. And when you finally stop fighting the silence, when you stop labeling the doubt as weakness, when you stop asking the world to fill the void, you will find that the silence itself becomes a kind of music, one that does not entertain but transforms, one that does not excite but awakens. And suddenly your doubt will become your strength because you have walked through it without running. You have stood inside it without hiding, and now you know, not from someone else's belief, but from your own presence, that you are not fragile, you are not empty, you are not lost. So let the silence come. Let it wash over you like nightfall. Let the doubt rise like waves. Let the uncertainty stretch out like the horizon. Horizon, because in time you will see that it is in the darkest waters that your truest reflection appears, not when others believe in you, not when the world cheers for you, but when you can stand utterly alone and still feel whole, when you can hear nothing but your own breath and still feel held, when you can walk with no path under your feet and still feel guided. And in that space, the silence will no longer be a threat, the doubt will no longer be an enemy, the solitude will no longer be suffering. It will be the doorway to something deeper, something unshakable, something eternal. Because once you realize that you are enough even in silence, even in doubt, even in the absence of all certainty, then nothing and no one can take that away. And you will walk not in arrogance, but in unshakable peace. There are moments in life when you do everything you can, give everything you have, pour every ounce of your energy into something, and yet somehow the room remains quiet. No one turns their head, no one claps, no one sees the fire you lit with your bare hands. And in that quiet, something sharp cuts into you. Not because they rejected you, but because they didn't even notice, didn't even pause, didn't even offer the decency of disagreement. And that silence, that invisibility, that subtle but piercing dismissal can feel heavier than any insult. because at least being criticized means you were seen. But it is precisely in these moments when you feel most forgotten, most irrelevant, most invisible, that something begins to stir. Not the surface where everyone's attention lives, but deep down where your real self has been waiting, watching, biding its time. Though bitter in the mouth is fire in the belly, and if you stop trying to get rid of it, if you stop trying to cover it with false pride or desperate effort, you'll feel its heat turning into movement, into hunger, into focus. Most people want to be seen before they become something unignorable. They want applause before impact, they want spotlight before they've even caught fire. But the universe in its silent intelligence withholds that attention not to belittle, but to protect, to prepare. Because sometimes being seen too early is the very thing that stops the growth, that only solitude can offer, that only being overlooked can provoke. Because when no one else is watching, you finally start watching yourself with brutal honesty. There is something sacred in being underestimated, in being passed by, in being the one no one bets on, because it removes the pressure to perform and replaces it with a raw urgency to transform. Hmm. Not for the sake of recognition, not for the sake of revenge, but for the sake of becoming so whole, so relentless, so real, that the world cannot help but feel your presence without you ever needing to announce it. So if they didn't see you, good, because now you don't owe them an explanation, you don't need their belief, you don't have to bend to fit their image of success, you can use every slight, every omission, every closed door as fuel, not to burn with hatred, but to forge yourself in silence, to build the kind of strength that doesn't need validation, that doesn't ask for applause, that grows not in sunlight, but in shadow, in pressure, in the hidden places where no one thought to look. Because the truth is, no great transformation happens under the gaze of others. No true breakthrough is born in comfort, no real power comes without pain. And if you are feeling the sting of being overlooked, if your name isn't being called, if your light hasn't been recognized, it simply means the fire is still being kindled within. And when it's ready, it won't need permission to burn. And one day, without forcing it, without announcing it, without begging for it, you will rise, not because someone gave you the chance, but because you became undeniable. Because you used every ounce of that pain to go deeper, to get sharper, to grow stronger, and they will look and say, "Oh, where did this come from?" And you will know it came from the very places they ignored, from the very silence they left you in, from the very doubt they cast upon you. So let them overlook you, let them forget you, let them doubt you, because that pain, if you don't suppress it, if you don't drown it, teach you, will become the most honest kind of fuel. Not the kind that burns fast and fades, but the kind that sustains the long journey, the kind that carries you beyond their praise, beyond their criticism, beyond their gaze, into a life where you are no longer waiting to be chosen, because you already chose yourself. There is a strange and sacred solitude that surrounds every true beginning. Not the kind of solitude that feels romantic or poetic, but the kind that weighs heavy in the chest, the kind that tastes like doubt and echoes with silence, because when something within you begins to stir, laughs, when the first sparks of your becoming are lit, the world does not gather to watch. The crowd does not applaud, in fact, most will not even notice, because the flame you are trying to nurture is still too small, too subtle, too quiet to draw their attention, and that is how it must be. You see, every great flame rises alone first, not in stadiums but in corners, not in spotlight but in shadows, not among cheers but in the company of long nights, deep questions, unseen efforts and sleepless turning. And if you are in that place right now where no one seems to understand what you're doing, where your passion looks foolish to others, where your effort feels invisible, then no, you are not lost. You are simply early in the fire. The oak begins as an acorn, unseen in the soil, cracking open in silence, pushing through dirt no one would care to dig. And so too your purpose, your calling, your voice begins in that unseen soil, beneath the noise, beneath the attention, and only the one who does not abandon the small flame, who does not curse the darkness, who does not need the world to believe before they've even stood, can ever grow into something that sets the sky on fire. Most people wait for company before they begin. They wait for certainty before they move. They wait for approval before they commit. And in doing so, they betray the flame within. They trade their possibility for comfort and their power for consensus. Forgetting that the mountain does not rise with applause, it rises through pressure, through time, through stillness. And the same is true for you. What is magnificent must first be misunderstood, and what is eternal must first be ignored. There is no shortcut to that early solitude. There is no way to escape the loneliness of rising, because rising by nature means leaving something behind. It means stepping above what is known, what is accepted, what is safe, and so, yes, you will rise alone, and yes, it will hurt, and yes, you will wonder if it's even worth it. But if you can stay with it, breathe through it, trust the direction, even when there is no map, something will begin to take shape, not in their eyes, but in your bones. And when that flame becomes strong enough, when it no longer flickers at the wind of doubt, when it no longer needs shelter from the disbelief, it will begin to glow in a way that cannot be ignored, not because you demanded attention, but because you became undeniable. And by then you will not need the world to confirm what you already know deep within. That your solitude was never a punishment, it was a preparation. So if today you find yourself standing alone with a dream too big for your surroundings, a fire too new to keep you warm, a silence too loud to bear, do not retreat, do not rush, do not trade it for noise, for the flame you carry is ancient, and all it needs is your patience, your presence, your willingness to endure the night without asking when the sun will rise. Because every great flame that ever lit the world first burned in some who was not afraid to rise alone, who did not wait for permission to be what they already were. If you two can walk that lonely path with grace, then one day they will see the fire, but you will already have become it. You have been told many things by parents who feared, by teachers who measured, by strangers who guessed, by a world that draws conclusions far too early and forgets far too quickly that you are this or that, smart or average, talented or on. Someone with potential or someone who should be realistic. And over time, these voices shape the walls inside your mind. And like a sculptor who never asked your permission, they chip away at your honors and begin to define your shape. But what they do not understand, what even you may have forgotten is that you are not the sum of what they believe. You are not a collection of opinions or a reflection of praise or blame. You are not a product built by external hands. You are a possibility untouched by belief. Because belief, while powerful, is still a limitation. It sets boundaries around what isn't. It isn't, it decides what is possible based on what is known. And you, if you're honest, are still unfolding, still breathing into form, still discovering what you truly are beneath the conditioning, beneath the fear, beneath the need to be accepted. And no belief, not even your own, can fully define that mystery, that potential, that living question that you are. And until you stop trying to be understood, allowing yourself to simply be, you will continue to mistake the opinions around you for the truth within you. Most people live trapped not by failure but by assumption, not by weakness but by labels, by the invisible cage of I am this. Oh, I am not that. Forgetting that the river is not the same at any two moments. Forgetting that the seed does not know it will become a tree. Forgetting that the sky has never once apologized for changing color. And so too must you remember that you were never meant to be one thing, one version, one story. You are the unfolding, the becoming, the infinite blooming of what has never existed before. When you stop needing to be defined, you start to be free. And in that freedom, something wild awakens, something that does not care for applause or judgment, something that moves without seeking destination, something that dances simply because it can. And in that moment, belief becomes unnecessary because you no longer need to believe in yourself. You have become yourself, and that is far more real, far more dangerous, far more alive than any version that ever needed convincing. So let them say what they will, let them decide your value through their narrow eyes and their old frameworks. Because their belief, whether high or low, cannot add or remove from the truth of what you are, which is not a fixed point but a pulse, not a static figure but a living force. And the sooner you stop trying to fit their mold, the sooner you realize there was no mold to begin with, only the vast, terrifying, beautiful space of what you could be. If only you stop pretending to know who you already are. Possibility does not wait for permission, it does not check credentials, it does not require belief. It moves like wind, like fire, like life itself. And the moment you say, maybe I can, the moment you whisper, what if, the moment you loosen your grip on the story they give, crack opens, a doorway appears and through it something sacred begins to move, not because someone believed in you, but because you stepped out of the need to be believed in at all. And from that space you will begin to act, not from fear, not from lack, not from trying to prove your worth, but from truth, from stillness, from a fire that does not burn for show, but for clarity, for transformation, for the sheer miracle of becoming. And though they may still try to define you, still try to measure you, still try to decide where you fit, it will no longer matter because you are no longer trying to fit. You are simply being what you are, and what you are is always more than what they see. So remember this, not as a comfort, but as a compass. You are not a product of belief, not theirs, not even your own, you are a possibility, ever shifting, ever growing, ever becoming. And the only thing you ever needed was not belief, but the courage to remain open, to remain uncertain, to remain alive to the mystery of what you truly are.